Hey guys, what's going on? Paul here. Welcome back to another Cardano video. And this was a wider market video today, looking at Bitcoin going up 15% yesterday, looking at the overall cryptocurrency space. Even skeptics starting to look at it now that maybe Bitcoin does have a use case. When the banks start to limit what you can take out of them, what you can take of your own money out of them, the sanctions that are coming in, there really is a strong case here for having money, having assets that you actually fully own, and that people can't decide one day that, yes, we'll limit that or we'll turn that off tomorrow. So we'll take a look at some of that. Also, liquidations played a role yesterday in the really quick rise in the price, which can lead to FOMO, and all of these different aspects are coming together at once. So we'll look at that as well as the rest of the market. Can the rest of the market keep up, or when we might see the rest of the market follow along as well? If you're new, subscribe, get value. Please do share it out if you think others can benefit. Let me know below the types of videos you want to see. Give it a like and let's jump into it. Okay, so actually before we get into the chart, you can see Bitcoin moving nicely again today, over $44,000 right now. But if we go and look at some of what's been going on. So market wrap, Bitcoin, Ethereum see massive pump as Russian ruble crumbles. A collapsing ruble and the threat of bank account seizures may be leading Russians to Bitcoin to avoid financial ruin. So right now the Russian stock market is collapsing. The ruble is down under 1 cent, I think the last time I looked. Things are not looking good if you hold just Russian assets right now. So what they're looking for is ways out, what they can do. If we look at this here, the Russian ruble, the volume yesterday for Bitcoin ruble was at an all-time high, absolutely way above anything we've seen before, where people are just rushing in. I've seen reports of people paying double the market price of Bitcoin because the ruble is falling so fast. They just had to get out of it, didn't want to stay in it, and straight into Bitcoin as it's one of the easier assets to get into. Now, some people are saying this is the only reason that Bitcoin is going up because Russia and different places are buying it based on this. But when you start to look at a bit more of the data, you'll start to see there's a few other reasons as well. So just on this as well, I'm talking about the use cases for cryptocurrency. So I've seen this one being shared around. It was a reporter, got a card today, bought it with Bitcoin as all ATMs are almost cleared out and the credit card terminals are down. Now, I think this was in the Ukraine, so it's happening on both sides of what's going on there. Unfortunately, there's a lot of innocent people on both sides of this. There's not many people actually want this to happen. But we start to look at some of the use cases, and there's lots of different stories out there of how people just cannot get access to their own funds, but they do have crypto. So crypto is a complete lifeline for some people out there right now, because no matter what happens, the banks can come in, the government can come in and shut down banks. They can limit what's going on. They can limit what you can take out of the bank of your own money. But when you actually hold cryptocurrency, and I mean you hold custody of it in your own wallet, then no one can come in and just take it off you. Yes, you can make the argument that the government can ban it and do all this and then demand that you give it up. But you actually have to, you give it to them personally. They cannot actually come in and take it if you do not give it to them yourself. So we've seen other countries ban it, unban it, all this type of narrative out there. But when people hold custody themselves, they're the ones in control of what happens. So we see, this was just another one about veteran investor Mark Mobius explains why Bitcoin is rallying. He said Bitcoin isn't a buy for him, but if he was in Russia right now, it would be a buy. He talks about diversifying your portfolio, why you should never be all in one asset. So the one to look at here for me is the liquidations. So liquidations, for people who don't know, this is where when people are trading on leverage, so you're essentially betting that the market is going to go up or go down. So green on top here shows long liquidations. So this is where people were long in the market. They were confident the price was going up, but it didn't go up and they got liquidated. Red is the short liquidations, where people who were shorting the market, betting that it was going to go down, market didn't go down, went up, and they got liquidated. When you short, you borrow Bitcoin and you sell it at the market value. Then you're hoping that the price goes down so you can buy that Bitcoin back at a lower value. You then pay back the Bitcoin you borrowed and then you keep the difference. Now this is the same for any asset, but we're using Bitcoin as the example here. So what happens when the price doesn't go down? So you sold the Bitcoin at the price that you borrowed it at, but the price keeps going up. So what happens is you don't have enough collateral then to just leave the price going up indefinitely. So you have to buy back into the market. So that puts pressure on the buy price instead of pushing the market down. So you can see the liquidations here started at 2 p.m. yesterday, 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. And if we go over to the Bitcoin chart and look at yesterday, you look at 2 p.m. yesterday and 3 p.m. yesterday, that's exactly when the price started to really spike up. So what's going on in Russia and things like that, yes, that could be the catalyst for pushing the price to the upside. But when it got to certain levels, what happened then was a lot of people who were short in the market had to actually end up buying back in. Their positions were liquidated, closed out. And that, all that does is puts more pressure to push the price to the upside. So you can see there, 2 and 3 o'clock is when we got a big push. As we got above 40,000, FOMO would have been kicking in. The stories are going around about Russia is buying into Bitcoin. It's pushing the price up. That means more and more people go in. Yes, Russia is going in. As you can see, the volumes on the ruble Bitcoin pair, there's people going in like that. But the overall market is starting to take notice as well. As well as that, the skeptics, when they see stories going around how Bitcoin is being a lifeline for people right now, they start to think maybe it's not as bad as they thought, and they start to look at potentially going in as well. So the next big pump here in the price was at 10 o'clock last night, going from 41.5 to just over $44,000. And if we look at the liquidations then, 10 o'clock last night was the biggest liquidations in a while on Bitcoin. And that's what we get here. So with the liquidations, what would have happened is they would have started pushing the price up. Generally, when there's a lot of liquidations, you'll see a big wick on the chart as well, where the price spikes up and then starts to settle again. What we're looking at now is consolidation. So now we wait and see, is there going to be more and more liquidations on this, or how is it going to play out? If we look at the big picture, if we start hitting levels like 45 to 46,000, if we break 46,000, I would expect lots more liquidations on that side as well. For me, things are starting to look a lot more bullish now. When you start to look at the use cases backed by the FOMO, backed by, unfortunately, the desperation that people have right now to get into assets, with Bitcoin being one of the easier ones to get into, I think we should continue to the upside. We don't know how the narrative is going to be played on the other side about how bad Bitcoin and cryptocurrency are and try and push it back down. So there's always the chance of some major volatility here, moves to the downside. But if you are in here for the long term, then things like this are looking fairly good. It shows why we are here. We want control of our own funds, and things like this are showing that. Will this continue across the overall market? If we look at, actually that's looking in Bitcoin, but if we look across the overall market, how it's performing, you can see in general, we'll refresh it here. In general, things are looking extremely good. The only ones in red are actual stable coins there, and the rest of the market looking fairly green overall. So that's against the USD, which is what a lot of people look at. But what we want to look at when you're in crypto for a while, you start to look at how are you performing against other assets, how you're performing specifically against Bitcoin. So if we look here, change this to Bitcoin. So this is every other price against Bitcoin. So you can see over 24 hours, most coins are down. Terra has been on an unbelievable run the last 7 days. So Terra is up, one of the few. Avalanche basically keeping up with Bitcoin. The rest, red. Cosmos just about keeping up with Bitcoin, near up slightly. But the majority of coins are red against Bitcoin. So, and this, I suppose this really shows that right now the world is looking at Bitcoin as the asset to jump into. Generally, this is what happens. If you look at a chart to keep an eye on as well, is the Bitcoin dominance here. So you can see Bitcoin dominance over the last few days is really starting to run up. And Bitcoin dominance is the percentage of the market that is held by Bitcoin. So this is Bitcoin versus the rest of the market. Right now at 44%. Down here on the lows, we had 39%. If you look at the big picture, this down here around that 39% has been a fairly solid bottom for Bitcoin so far. Even when you come way out here, back at this point here, this was back in 2018, 39% was a fairly strong bottom there as well. So what you would look at is when is the dominance going to stop growing? When is this funds going to start flowing into altcoins when we see the majority of altcoins starting to outperform Bitcoin? So does the Bitcoin dominance keep rising over the next while? I would say Bitcoin dominance still has another bit to go before we should hopefully start to see the funds that are coming into Bitcoin right now start to flow out into the overall market. And that's when you start to see altcoins outperforming. In the short term, I think Bitcoin is the one to watch for the next few days. And then we start to see how the overall narrative is turning. Then if you actually looked at this in terms of the trend of it, the shorter term trend for this right now would show you here that right now there's still a bit of room for dominance to grow to the upside. So on ADA then, 102 was our strong support for so long. All the way along here, this is what held up. But over the last 2 weeks, we failed that and have fallen with everything that's going on in the world. Hit a low of 75 cents, which is, I didn't think we'd see them prices at this point in the market. But with Bitcoin, you can see, nice push to the upside yesterday. 102 has to be the level that we try and reclaim fairly soon. Until we break out of this overall downtrend, we can't really look too far ahead. But looking at the bigger picture and timelines, yesterday we got the deliverable for February. The major upgrade was submitted, so them changes will go into effect now. A lot of them are node impacts and setting up things for what is to come in June. Really, June is the one that is going to be the biggest release for Cardano in a long time, because it includes a lot of scalability fixes. It includes some of the SIPs. Does this one here actually tell me? So February. So here we go here. So then the hard fork combinator. So the one that went out yesterday wasn't a hard fork. June is a hard fork because there's a lot bigger changes and some breaking changes in it. So they introduced an array of scaling enhancements, include scaling plan like pipelining, which is going to help block propagation across the network. The SIPs, these here, the SIPs are something that are really needed. There's some more complex DeFi projects that are nearly ready to go, but without some of the SIPs that are there to really help with throughput and how they can handle their own scripts, then they cannot safely launch yet. So the June, I think the end of June is the hard fork. That's when we should see them coming into play. And the first initial release of Hydra as well, which again brings more scalability in there. So in the run up to something like that, generally when Cardano has a release, when anything has a release, that's when you're going to start to see the run up. So in the month or 2 months before that, that's when I would expect the ADA price to really start to move. Obviously, what's going on in the overall market will be a determining factor there, and Bitcoin will be that big determining factor. Where does the overall cryptocurrency market sit when we start getting closer to the event for ADA? If you look here, I would expect that March, April, nothing too major out of ADA at this point. What you will be looking at is keeping up with the rest of the market, maybe outperform on certain days depending on what's coming. But into May and June, that's when ADA should really be equipped to run on its own once we are in a fairly decent overall market. So that's my own thoughts on it right now. We'll be keeping a close eye on Bitcoin to see where it goes over the next few days, because right now it is pulling the rest of the market, because that's the one that we say outside of cryptocurrency, that's the one that everyone's watching right now. And then over time, that will all start to flow into the rest of the cryptocurrency market as well. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you got some value. If you did, please share it out. New, subscribe, give the video a like, and even leave a comment below for the algorithm. Talk to you soon.